this class it's kind of, well, it's evolving as classes do. When I started teaching it, Kim and I were sharing the class time on Wednesdays, and that was in like September or October we started, right? And it was sort of, for me, born out of this like realization of how dissociated I had become from my body over the course of the pandemic, and really feeling like I needed to inhabit my body again, and sort of recognizing that dissociation as a really effective strategy for dealing with how the collective trauma of the pandemic, but that it was not doing me a service anymore, that it was actually like inhibiting my lifestyle. So for me, the class started this way as a way to just like get back into my body. And it started morphing a little bit into this consideration of how sort of systemic oppression is alive in our bodies and manifests in our bodies in different ways. And so we've explored a little bit sort of different facets of white supremacy culture and how they show up in our experience, our lived experience in a human body. One of them we talked about was perfectionism. You and I were just talking about that a little bit ago, and this sort of sense of urgency and perfectionism and individualism that is so ingrained in our culture, and finding ways to kind of identify when that's coming up in our body and resist it. So we explored those things for a little while. We've talked about sort of seasonal shifts. In the last few classes we've talked a lot about grief and holding the grief of the last couple of years and the grief of normal life experiences in combination with all of this that we've been managing in the last almost 2 years now. So as I was like thinking about that today, and I sort of just take this wherever my brain and my life are moving me. So I was thinking about resilience, and that word became such a buzzword in the last 2 years. It's like I hear it everywhere, especially if you're studying trauma. You hear the term resilience all the time. And I was realizing that I have a very like cognitive understanding of what resilience is. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like a response to a hardship. It's our ability to like rebound and bounce back from hardship and challenges in life. But that I don't feel like I have a very like somatic understanding of resilience. I don't have this like embodied, I haven't had the time or the space to really figure out what that resilience actually feels like in my body. It's one thing to talk about it and write about it and think about it, but it's a different thing to feel it. So I was thinking about that at the end of last week, and then this weekend I was listening to a recorded workshop of an astrologer that I like, actually, but astrology aside, she did this cool meditation, sort of somatic or body-based meditation on resilience. And I was like, oh, and it was the first time I'd had the opportunity to really feel what resilience feels like what it actually feels like inside a body. So I thought I'd try to replicate that for us as a starting point for practice today and see what you think, and then we can just bring that as like a thread through the rest of the movements that we do. So if you're willing to experiment with me a little bit, I'm just going to have you, don't change anything about how you're sitting right now, but just notice the way you're sitting. So try not to adjust, and notice your pelvis, and if you have weight sort of in the front of your pelvis or the back of your pelvis or the left or right side, you're just noticing where it is. And then notice how your spine starts to grow out of the pelvis, and see if you can visualize the curvature of your spine without changing it, all the way up through your upper back and your neck and into your head. And now imagine that you have a 50-pound weight on top of your head, and let the feeling of that weight move all the way down through your body, through your pelvis, into the ground. And then imagine you have another 50-pound weight on top of that. And with that imagination, can you tell where the breaking points would be if you kept piling weight on? Where might there be a snap? And then this is the key part. Resist the weight and push back up into it. And so to resist it, you have to push up and root down simultaneously. And it's that feeling of pushing back, of bouncing back. That's the resilience right there. That's the feeling of resilience. Of holding your space and holding your own. And so I want to add onto this something else I've been playing with, which is feeling into that, the resilience of pushing back and grounding down simultaneously. And then being soft enough that you can breathe still. So you can still breathe into the front of your body and the back of your body and both sides. And I add this piece about the breath because I think if resilience is going to be something that we have that sustains, something that continues, and that is readily available to us, it has to work with the breath. You have to be able to breathe in the midst of being resilient. So if you can, just place a little somatic bookmark here. And we'll keep returning to this feeling, whatever you're feeling in your body right now, as you imagine resilience, as you imagine resisting and pushing back into whatever weights you're carrying. We'll just remember this so that we can return to it as a reference point as we explore it in other shapes and perhaps as you explore this in other parts of your life.